Welcome to Canine Revolution Radio. Presented by Canine Revolution Dog Training, enhancing the dog and owner relationship through education, balance, and pack instinct.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Canine Revolution Radio. Got Chad and Chris here with me. Today we're going to talk about understanding anxiety in dogs. Very, very important topic, I feel. A lot of body language that dogs do emit, a lot of the things that they do is misunderstood by humans. So today we're going to clear up some misconceptions having to do under the umbrella of anxiety, all right? So just real quick, one, anxiety is super common in dogs. So is insecurity, especially in nowadays the domesticated dog, these rescue dogs, all these dogs that have these past where they've been reinforced in these mindsets, unbeknownst to the normal owner. So extremely common. So if you're dealing with some of this, don't think, you got a freak case or anything. We can definitely address it with just some proper management, all right? So I want to talk about a couple of the signs, more so right now, just the biggest one that I see because I see it literally every day on social media.
Kevin's getting ticked off.
We're already getting amped up here.
Kevin's getting ticked off at these viral videos.
Every dodo video, every rescue video, everybody out there with their dog.
Wait, what's dodo?
It's like an animal page.
Oh,
I'll send you some links.
People are going to stop following us because Kevin's talking trash about viral videos.
We just got to understand it, all right? Smiling. Your dog is not smiling. It does not mean the same thing to us that it does to them. Smiling or baring their teeth. One thing that I remember we read that they could be doing it is because to copy us, right? But if you just got a rescue dog, put him in your car or truck, and he's smiling at you, he's not happy that he's going somewhere. He doesn't understand that. He's kind of freaking out a little bit in his mind because his environment is drastically changing. He's with new people. There's all these variables, and he's just unsure. Dogs don't speak English. We can't just be like, hey, you're coming home with us forever. You're going to have a great life. You know what I mean? So inside their mind, they don't understand what's going on. It's actually just anxiety, and it's common to be associated with like heavy panting at the same time, which kind of exacerbates the smiling. So we interpret it to be something that we do instead of understanding it from their level. And we've probably mentioned in every episode we need to look at it from the dog's level, not our own, okay? Anything y'all want to add to that?
Yeah, just, real quick, we as humans, we see these things that are similar to a human signal, human body language, and that's what we expect.
Right. Because we want it to be that.
Yep,
you know
exactly.
what I mean?
We gotta educate ourselves on what a dog is really communicating and understand it like we always talk about from their perspective. You know what I'm saying? And go with that.
Yep. So just to dive into anxiety a little bit, let's look at it let's think about it from our end, right? So when you go to new places, like if you travel somewhere you've never been before, or you're starting a new job with people you've never met before, or just going to like a party, meeting new people, going out, whatever, pushing your boundaries, we're going to be naturally anxious. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be there. Of course, people can reassure you that, hey, it's okay. I've been here before. This place is safe, or this guy is cool, or this job is awesome. You're going to love it. That's all well and good, but we understand English. You know what I mean? So from the dog perspective, if we put them in those scenarios that will, stress them out, well, that's well and good. We can't tell them that it's okay. But if they are exposed to it long enough, potentially they could start to warm up to the trigger or to the scenario. Excuse me. So in the dog world, and you see this quite often, until we are exposed long enough to the scenario, whether it's insecure or anxious behaviors, owners tend to reinforce these mindsets by telling their dog in baby talk that it's okay, or petting them. I can't tell you how many consultations I go to where they're holding the dog back, the dog is growling and barking at me, and they're, oh, it's okay, and it's, at that point I usually say, hey, go ahead and stop petting him, because you're just reinforcing that, and I don't really want to get bit today. So
I've had some owners try to redirect with like food and stuff, and
right.
like they're, here's some food,
yeah,
reinforce
something they value even more than the touch potentially,
right.
and
right.
You know what I'm saying? We're going from 0 to 100 at that point. And I get from a human standpoint where we can see it as being effective. However, our dogs don't understand it,
And understand we're not necessarily like bashing the humans, like, because all three of us have been there and done that
Absolutely.
stuff. So this is more about educating you guys on.
That's why we're doing this. We're trying to educate you. We're trying to educate everybody, just like we were educated, Dude, I used to do the same thing. Go to the vet office with Bane. Bane's trying to eat the vet, and I'm like, yeah, it's a good boy, it's okay.
I actually had to stop the vet last time just because like Wally was just losing it, and they were like trying to. It was just bad. I was like, just stop petting him, please. But what we're doing, during that time, unfortunately, is we are building upon these undesirable behaviors, and normal owners are always shocked when they escalate. Oh, this came out of nowhere. This behavior came out of nowhere. When truth is we've just accidentally may have reinforced that behavior without even realizing it.
Over a period of years,
right?
Even, you know what I mean?
And so this is why we do what we do. We want you to be cognizant of what you do in your day to day. You may have to change a few things up if you're noticing some of these things begin to escalate. You may have to implement structure. Of course we're biased. Get some training. But there are other things you can do, with the common untrained dog.
But you should still probably get training
Yeah,
at the Revolution.
8, 4, 3, 2, 1. But we just need to be aware of what we are doing and how our dog can potentially understand it. And there's a lot of great books out there. I'm sure we'll have a podcast where we go over a list of books and quick overviews of everything that we've read. But there's a lot of good information out there to include this podcast, okay? So some common signs of anxiety, going back, we talked about smiling being a big one. Pacing, if your dog is walking to one place and then back multiple times, it could be a typical sign, or just kind of keep walking in a circle or walking around the living room, whatever the case may be. I've seen it where they will go where like their feeding area is and then come back in, and they'll do that. And the owner's like, oh, you're hungry. I'm going to get up. I'm going to feed you. I'm going to reinforce this mindset. And I just kind of let you dominate me if food was in fact what you wanted. You know what I mean?
And the dog's getting fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Guaranteed.
So we're, again, just accidentally reinforcing it, unbeknownst to us. Panting, huge one. When I used to put, Lulu in the vehicle, the second I start up the vehicle, just start losing it. She would spaz out, start biting the windows to dash, all this prior to training. Now she may whine for about 2 minutes, but she goes to sleep, right? Because ultimately I'm giving her something else to do with that downstay in the vehicle. But yeah, panting, heavy panting, you haven't just did exercise or anything like that. Typically a good sign of anxiety. So just to give you a little scenario, I know some clients have issues with putting their dogs in kennels, right? So I put a dog in a kennel that potentially has barely been exposed to it before. Oftentimes they begin to excessively pant. They may whine, they may start getting destructive. All that is anxiety, right? So look at it from our perspective. Imagine going to a foreign country, you meet someone, and the first thing they do is guide you to a room, lock you in it, and leave, right? What are you going to think?
I've seen a movie like that, I think, once.
What are you going to think? How would you feel? You know what I mean? So that...
A little anxious.
Yeah, absolutely. But, of course, with the training, we do proper kennel conditioning. We want them to be comfortable in it. We want them to treat it like their den in the wild. But, again, just looking at it from their perspective, what's going on in their mindset. You know what I mean? You have anything touch on there?
Oh, going back to the foreign country example, what if you go to a foreign country, you don't speak a lick of that language, you're anxious about something, and someone's just talking to you, but you don't know what they're saying? Right. What could that do? Make you more anxious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're lost. You don't know where you're at. You're trying to find your way back.
Yep,
Everybody
exactly.
speaks a different language than you. You know?
Exactly.
So I think those are some good metaphors just to look at it, from our perspective to a dog's perspective. So, what do we do, right? We have these issues. What do we do? How do we address them? So from a training standpoint, if I have a trained dog in an anxious state of mind, I'm going to manage that mind. I'm going to give him familiar things to do in order to redirect that mindset and ultimately make them comfortable. If I take them to a new environment, but I start practicing the obedience and I'm giving them something that they understand, some form of energy to put that mindset in and rely on me to kind of dictate what happens in the scenario, So that's why when we properly socialize a dog, we like to practice the obedience. We make it fun. We make it interactive. If my dog is not being interactive, I may move further away from what's causing them to shut down. So, we do the focus drills, engagement, whatever the case may be. But at the core, what I'm doing is generalizing all environments to the dog through these practices. It's a huge part of training, again, just from their perspective. To us, we're going to Home Depot, right? The dog potentially has never been there. You got cars, you got foot traffic, you got forklifts, different smells, noises, even the slick floors, all of these things happening at once. It's an overload, it's a mental overload to the dog. So ideally, again, we want them to be comfortable. So I may go into the field off next to the parking lot instead, allow them to sniff around, allow them to eliminate, maybe put a familiar odor in that area to where they could kind of feel a little bit more at ease. then maybe slowly work my way towards the environment, just to not, overload them. But that's, that's good for a trained dog. You can apply that to an untrained dog as well. You could continue to expose them to it. Short sessions, of course, you don't want to stress them out to the point to where they're just going to shut down every time. But maybe I get out, maybe I do a quick lap around the parking lot, get back into my car, go home. Maybe a couple days later I go back, make it a couple more minutes longer, until they're comfortable. You could even set a time, be like, hey, here's 10 minutes. This is what I'm going to do 10 minutes a day until I start to see some confident body language. Some, dogs are scheduled. They're like, oh, I'm going here. I've been here before. They may be a little bit more calmer than they were the day before. We don't want to force anything. We want it to happen kind of organically, So we work in close proximity to what's going on. You find that threshold of reactivity and eventually move toward it and through it, So again, if they're in the parking lot, I'm just going to keep going. Maybe try to find a quieter place. If we're doing socialization, like in our episode, we say, hey, start at a park, somewhere low key. But if we're to the point to where we're going to Home Depot, this is kind of how we want to, address it as well. Lowe's, PSA, whatever the case may be. Y'all got anything for that?
So I would just also harp on. I mean, you can do this. You can do engagement with an untrained dog, but with training, I feel anyway that it's easier to address the anxiety because they get comfort out of the structure. We've talked about this, tons of times. But there's a huge difference between walking down the aisle in Home Depot with a dog pulling on the leash and a dog in a good structured heel position. Them being in that heel position, they still may be showing all those signs of anxiety. They may have a rigid body posture, heavy panting, lips are back. They're very stressed, and you can see that. But we're giving them something to focus on, like you said. That brings them comfort, builds their confidence over time. But then on top of that is making those sessions positive. I always try to start a session with something positive, like engagement, like you brought up, maybe some focus drills, and I like to try to end it with that as well. So I'm continually building, making it a positive thing. My dog Vader was very stressed at it. Pretty much, we left the house, right? He's super stressed, very vocal. But for a long time, I mean, probably a 2-week stretch straight, I fed him at a Lowe's. It was on my way in over to Chad's. I'd stop in every morning, feed him his breakfast. At first, he's like, don't want nothing to do with it. Well, that's okay. Eventually, he got into it, and now all of a sudden, ooh, this is where I get my breakfast. I like this place. Now he's good. So hold him to the structure. Having a trained dog is going to make this a little bit easier. Hold them to something that's going to bring comfort to them, but then also try as much as possible to make it a positive experience.
Exactly. And then also, we talk about a dog being anxious in Home Depot, maybe, for example, pulling you down the aisle. That can make you anxious too.
Oh, yeah.
So getting your dog calm, confident, relaxed through training or through just doing what we're talking about, that can make you less anxious as well.
Mm-hmm. Big time. And that's a huge factor. Like your emotions and what you're feeling can go right into your dog. And that was a big one for me. Like I could, even with the training, when I'm working on the training, my dog's issues were dog reactivity. I could be perfectly calm in the training, and then all of a sudden a dog comes around. What happens?
You freaking out.
Oh my gosh, here we go, right? And then the dog's like, what happened? They sense that change, and now all of a sudden they're even more jacked up, and boom, you get a reaction. So yeah, that's a huge point.
I mean, they're so sensitive to the vibes that we put off. Not only that, just little things in the moment. We'll choke up on that leash, or we'll become rigid. They see that.
Yeah,
they're just gonna react.
Absolutely.
Along with it. But just, so talking about negative mindset. So if I am walking through Home Depot with an untrained dog, I would never do. But if I was walking through Home Depot with an untrained dog, at that point, if they're pulling against the leash and they're getting amped up, all I'm doing is reinforcing that mindset at that point as well. You know what I mean? There's no control there. So do be cognizant if you have an untrained dog, how you may start to address it. You may want to reach out and just go ahead and send them through a training program. Because we don't want to accidentally reinforce these mindsets. Why? Because they grow, escalate. I'm sure we're going to talk about body language more in depth at a future podcast. But the ones we talked about earlier, pacing, panting excessively, smiling, whining, and barking, all these things we need to avoid reinforcing and we need to work through. Because just imagine a ball of energy in their head, and it has to come out somewhere, right? So then we talk about the behaviors that anxiety can cause in the home, destructive behaviors. You know what I mean? Tearing up your couch, your clothes, chewing your baseboards, breaking out of the kennel, bum rushing the door, jumping all over people, barking, losing their mind. Is some of these can sometimes be insecurity as well or under stimulation, yes, but a lot of these are based in anxiety. Of course, we know the difference, but they all go hand in hand. It's not always both. Sometimes one, sometimes it's the other. But think about how much energy is created by that mindset as they dive deeper and deeper into it, and it has to and will come out somewhere. We call it, it can start leaking, or it can just result in just full-on destruction. So just to kind of touch on anxiety a little bit. Of course, this is why we recommend training. You have the opportunity with proper training to manage your dog on a mental and physical instinctual basis every day, which over time provides them calm, confident, relaxed demeanor, right? They know what to expect. They have that structure to adhere to. They respect and trust me in situations that they're uncomfortable with. They check in with me when they're uncomfortable. Things like that. That is what you ultimately want to achieve through training. If I notice undesirable behaviors, I can simply redirect that negative energy and that mindset into something positive for them to do. Not only manages them mentally, but also communicates to them that they can rely on me in that scenario, that you can respect me. I'm going to control the environment for you. I'm going to build your respect and trust in me as your pack leader. So just to kind of wrap that up a little bit, if you guys have anything else to add.
Yeah, I'll touch on one thing. So Kevin mentioned physical stimulation. So I want to talk about that for just a quick minute. So like I hear this a lot, I exercise my dog all the time, but they're still bouncing off the walls.
I let them run around in the yard all the time.
Exactly. Right? So like that's the thing. Like, what are you doing are you exercising them in a healthy way, in the way that they need, with the balance of mental stimulation as well, right? We're properly balancing their energy levels. Just literally like giving them physical exercise. Treadmill's a good example. We use the treadmill. It's a great tool. But if we just put the dog on the treadmill for an hour, 2 hours a day and be like, boom, we're giving them their exercise. We're building their endurance. We're building their stamina, and that anxiety is going to just last that much longer.
Right.
And you're building that anxious mindset. So physical stimulation is key, along with mental stimulation, and as long as you're doing it in the proper, healthy means.
Well, to piggyback off that, so some examples, things we commonly hear of people giving their dog exercise. They throw their dog in the backyard. Dog's running around the backyard. Guess what the dog's doing? Building anxiety because it doesn't know what it's supposed to be doing. So it's just pacing around, chasing things. No structure. Anxiety's building. No exercise really happening. Sometimes it's hot, so your dog might seem tired, but
yeah. Then they're
getting anxious.
10 minutes later, good to go.
Exactly. The other thing, like you talk about, just doing a treadmill with them, for example. Again, you're just building their endurance. You're not helping the anxiety. Number 3. People taking their dogs on walks, and I've known people that have walked their dogs for like 5 miles every day to get the physical exercise in because they've seen that on YouTube, they've seen it on TV. You need to walk your dog, exercise your dog, which you do need to do that. But if I'm walking my dog and they're pulling on the leash the entire time, they're building anxiety, they're building up more tension, they're building up arousal, building up these bad things, practicing these things, versus if I'm walking in like a heel position like we do, now there's structure. Now there's something you got to focus on. Now there's something you have to do, which simulates that pack mentality instinctually that they have. So doing it that way is resolving the anxiety versus taking them on a 5-mile walk, leash pulling, letting them do whatever. That could build anxiety as well, especially if you're walking through the neighborhood, for example. Dogs are pooping and peeing all over the place. Your dog's smelling all that all the time. So you're actually increasing anxiety because you're moving through so much territory without structure being there. You know what I'm saying? So just some examples there.
I mean, my dog Lola is a perfect example. She's an anxious hound. I used to, like, prior to training, I could walk her for an hour and like she'd be a little bit tired, but then she'd be ready to go, right? And now I can take her out 15, 20 minutes, do some obedience, structured walk, and she's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Smoked, balanced, nice and balanced.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, guys, that about wraps up today's episode for anxiety. Check us out, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, like, subscribe, and reach out if you need some help. If you have any questions or feedback, please let us know. Otherwise, see you in the next one.